But Flash Wolves have never dropped a game, as Vedius was mentioning on the desk, to any team that has to go through play.
And they've done their homework coming into game one, pick phase one. Well, bans already. Galio off the table. SuperMassive were playing that 3 games. They had it and banned away from them because they were playing Protect Zeitnot. That's why the Caitlyn is also banned away, taking some of these power picks away from SuperMassive.
On the flip side, SuperMassive, they've banned out Syndra as well as LeBlanc. So 2 very early target bans towards Maple.
And the reason for that is Maple and Casa are so devastating. If they can play off a mid lane push and then get into the jungle and kill people, that's where they're so strong. I'm expecting still to see Maple pick some sense of early game mid laner that can push. But on the other side, Naru has been playing counter matchups quite effectively in the play-in stage. They will have the counter pick for mid lane should they wish to choose it.
Let's see if SuperMassive do save their last pick for that mid lane pick. A couple more bans have come out here as Flash Wolves take away the Lulu, another important component for the Protect the Zeitnot team comp. And we have Malzahar as the final ban from SuperMassive.
And now with that Lulu off the board, the Malzahar gone as well, that support priority for the Zyra goes up. Not something we saw all that much through the play-in stage round 1, but that's why Flash Wolves are going for it with those 2 bans. Now you look over at SuperMassive, clear focus towards their AD carry. Get some engage in there, get a strong jungler. We know Casa loves the Lee Sin.
And he's going to be picking that one up. Casa will be taking Lee Sin into jungle against the Merger's Graves, which has been locked in here for SuperMassive. And Flash Wolves look like they want to take Varus as well to head into this Zyra lane. So already very strong pick ban from these 2 teams.
Outside of the Ashe, Varus is the next meta bot laner that Betty has. He's put on some great performances in the 10 games that he's played at overall. The Jhin, of course, drops in priority. That was his most favored before, but this is a throwback to Worlds. This is what we're talking about, some of the international presence, perhaps. Misfortune into the Zyra. It dropped off quite catastrophically in the meta after people realized that outside of the Zyra matchup, there aren't too many good matchups for the Misfortune, and without a lot of crowd control, sometimes that can be affected, but pair it with Ashe, that's quite a poke damage heavy lane that has good level 6 potential. That bullet time with the Crystalline Arrow at level 6, very difficult to play against.
Yep, definitely a kill lane once it hits 6. Same with the side of Flash Wolves though. You look at Zyra as well as Varus. That is a potent lane once they hit 6, but definitely is still only being picked up as a counter towards Zyra in the bottom lane now.
Now at this point, SuperMassive banning away top laners is an interesting one because obviously their solo laners are still to pick up. Camille banned away. MMD has played a bunch of that in the playoff stage and the last few weeks of the split. He's also played the likes of the Rumble and the Kled. Now, if they put Flash Wolves in a situation where they force out the Rumble, that means they can counterpick top lane and take a safe mid laner in the first rotation for the SuperMassive here. Maybe something like an Orianna for Naru. He has played the Victor as well, but with the Ahri off the board, a lot of his picks are gone that like to snowball.
Well, speaking of Rumble, that has been banned out by SuperMassive. And as you've mentioned, Flash Wolves have decided to take away Naru's Ahri. He's had up and down performances, Naru on the Ahri in the mid lane.
Yeah, he has. It's dependent on whether he can snowball, but now you look with the Rumble gone, the Camille gone, Nautilus goes up again in priority. If SuperMassive want to pick the safe top laner, they can do it here. I expect them to go something that is safe in this first pick and allow Flash Wolves to kind of take a neutral matchup in one lane and counterpick the other.
That's exactly what SuperMassive do. They pick up Nautilus to head into the top lane for Fabulous.
We could see the Kled. Kled, you can run into Nautilus out from MMD. Other matchups, they have tended towards Maokai in neutral lanes, but it isn't always the best pick. I think if they want to snowball these games quicker, the Kled will work well for side lane presence. And it's not a surprise out of the Flash Wolves. They have played 5 games already of Kled this split, and it is locked in.
That gets locked in for MMD, so we will see Kled charge into the Nautilus on the top side of the map. Maple does have to show his hand, though. We expect pushing mid lanes from Flash Wolf. We expect a pushing bottom lane. They've already got one component of that, and Talia would make a good pick to continue shoving in mid lane.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of different things from Maple, whether it's the Talia, the Aurelion Sol, the Talon, all focused of moving out of the lane. And that's one thing you've got to look at here is SuperMassive haven't necessarily got to protect Zeitnot composition yet. If they can pick up some shielding like an Orianna from mid lane, maybe that's enough to get Zeitnot through. But if you end up with a Kled charging down in the bottom lane with a Talia coming bottom as well, SuperMassive may drop out of their big favored composition style if Zeitnot falls behind.
Well, they do pick up the Orianna, so they give some protection over towards Zeitnot, but still looking like a very front-to-back team composition almost for SuperMassive. Not as protective as we have seen them run in the past.
That is true. It's an awkward composition because now you kind of have a reduced role for Dumbledoge when it comes to shields, heals, crowd control. Dumbledoge is more about armor shred, getting a little damage down now with some slows, but that level 6 point in the bot lane. If Zeitnot and Dumbledoge can get the right engage, maybe it goes in their favor, but that's difficult when they can match the crowd control from the Flash Wolves. You look at it, Varus, Zyra, still great at locking people down, and their level 6 isn't to be, you know, overlooked either.
Very curiously, up until yesterday, we've seen a lot of Ivan prioritization, especially in the first stage of play-ins. Even yesterday with TSM taking on the Gigabyte Marines, there was a lot of prioritization towards Ivan. None at all in this match. And SuperMassive picked up Graves. Flash will say, yeah, we're taking Lee Sin.
I can give you an insight as to why. If you want to play Ivan and drop back in the jungle for 6 levels and just wait, Casa's going to take over the entire game, so they have to put priority on that jungle. They pick up the Graves for themselves, but still you have to look at it like that. Talir is going to push. Casa is going to invade. You can put money on that. He will absolutely go aggressive. And from there, Flash Wolves will see if they can play their style or whether SuperMassive can kind of drop back, hold them for a while and play on an even footing.
Yeah, and I was talking to the head coach of Fireball, one of the LMS teams, and he was talking about how Flash Wolves, you know, a lot of teams, you expect the jungler to gank for the mid lane. No, it's the exact opposite. The mid lane pushes up so the jungler can go gank the other jungler, kill him, and impact the rest of the map.
And that was the evolution that we saw out of the Flash Wolves at IEM. As we head into Game 1, we'll see if their style has changed at all, but they tore apart the EU LCS top teams by taking that winning mid lane, moving into the jungle and dominating the enemy jungler. If Flash Wolves can do that here, SuperMassive may not be able to hang, but we've seen good performances out of the Turkey representatives already in the play-in stage.
We have. They've already got 5 wins so far.
Uh-oh, level 1!
Jumped on a level 1 and snared up as well. Exhaust goes down, forced the Flash away. So Marge will take some damage as well, but already 2 early summoner spells blown.
And those are very important spells out of SuperMassive here. Now, no flash on Misfortune into the Zyra is devastating for this matchup. Misfortune relies on being able to move forward, land some damage, whether it's the Make It Rain or the double up, and then move back away and push out a low sustain lane like the Zyra. Now, if Dumbledoge moves forward in the early part of the lane, you get rooted down, you get taken out by a lot of the damage that comes from Betty and Sword Art. So Dumbledoge has to now play with a lot of respect, and the Flash Wolves early on in Game 1 go, okay, you want an aggressive game? Here you go.
So Zyra does not get the lane priority, doesn't get to put the seeds down nice and early, but still blowing 2 summoner spells. Flash Wolves will be very happy with that. So Marge looks like he wants to start on Raptor camp here today. Will be spotted out by that ward that was placed down by MMD, I believe. We'll get a leash from Fabulous to kick this one off. Meanwhile, we have Lee Sin being played by Casa here today, taking down Red Buff to kick off the game.
Yeah, we'll have to track where Casa goes on the early parts of this game, whether he'll come back bottom lane. This is something we saw Levi do. We saw a couple of teams, as soon as that flash is down, level 2 ganks aren't all that common, but they can be super effective here if SuperMassive don't respect it. Even if they get onto Zeitnot and get a second flash, it should be enough.
That's a flash forward. Sword Art's locked down. Dumbledoge tagged up by Casa, and 2 minutes into the first match, Flash Wolves pick up first blood.
Oh, we've seen that one before. As soon as that low mobility support flash is down, you get the jungler bot lane, get in there, pick up first blood. It even goes to Casa. So we talked about how the control for Flash Wolves come from this aggressive jungler. 2 minutes in, already having impact on this game.
Stomach does the right thing, heads straight in towards Casa's jungle while his bottom lane will be able to take blue buff away. So it should be a 3 buff start for Stomach, but Casa still heavy impact play in the bottom lane. That not only sets up Betty and Sword Art, but like you mentioned, he's going to go toe-to-toe against Stomach now in the jungle.
And this is a problem now for SuperMassive in the sense that Kled will take over the Nautilus at least a little later on in the lane. Not quite now. The same Maple for now will have an advantage. So if SuperMassive are planning everything on Zeitnot, his damage for now, that's a rough time if he has to drop back in the lane, concede presence, drop in CS as well. If that happens for Zeitnot, SuperMassive are in big trouble.
Right now, though, Fabulous is doing well up at the top side of the map against MMD. He's already knocked him off his Lizard. But Kasa is waiting in the wings once again. Very big minion wave though. Don't think he really wants to run into that one head on just yet.
And of course, without Skull, MMD doesn't really have the safety of going in, even though Kled is one of the champions that at low health can be deceptive. Once he drops off, gets that untargetable frames, can trade a little more effectively, but the fact that he had already lost Skull means he doesn't want Kasa coming up top. They don't want to give anything away in this 1 versus 1 on the top side.
Meanwhile, on the bottom side of the map, Zeitnot and Dumbledore still doing all right for now against Betty and Sword Art. You still expect the Misfortune to do well into the Zyra. Ash does have a slightly higher range as well, but mid lane where the action is at.
Oh, Naru's out of mana.
Being used by Maple. Naru is out of mana, but does have Stomage just behind him. Kasa is making sure he keeps Maple protected, but already small experience advantage for Stomage, level 4 to level 3 of Kasa.
And look at it. There you go. Push out the mid lane. This time Kasa even comes mid and goes, okay, let's just shove it out.
If you can't push it fast enough for me, I'll come in there and do it for you.
Nice little sidestep out of Naru, though. Actually dodged the pushback from Talia. May very well have gone a little bit more in the favor of the Flash Wolves. And I like what Stomage is trying to do here. He's trying to at least control one half of the map, put River focus on the bottom side, because if they can keep Zeitnot and Dumbledoge at least in this game, maybe they can stabilize.
Still, so far, Flash will still have 2 of their win conditions going through, which is Kasa getting into the enemy lines, getting ganks in the bottom lane, Maple pushing up, but bottom lane still not going as well as Flash Wolves would like it to. SuperMassive are doing well, Zeitnot and Dumbledore, despite getting ganked very early on.
Yeah, some of this is to do with the fact they just recall out with a big wave pushing into them, so Betty will recoup some of that CS difference between the two. Again, that flash is still down for another 20 to 30 seconds. Shouldn't have that much impact as Dumbledore is not even in the lane right now, just focusing on warding. So SuperMassive, this isn't the massive detrimental impact of Kasa going off for now. It's going to be reliant on a few more kills if Flash Wolves get it before SuperMassive are really in trouble. But consider that the majority of their team's damage, nearly 36% of their damage comes from Zeitnot throughout the play-ins. That's an obscene amount of damage for one player to be doing. If they hamstring this lane, we'll have to see whether SuperMassive can play without that massive damage threat.
That's going to be incredibly different this match because we have a Misfortune, we've got Oriana, we've got Graves. We expect the damage to be shared out amongst the rest of SuperMassive. But 6 minutes into the game, despite first blood for Flash Wolves, it's dead even in gold. If not, SuperMassive creeping ahead very slightly. Even the mid lane, Naru holding his own against Maple nice and easy.
Yeah, it's one of these times where it's an Oriana lane, so now that Naru is post about level 4, level 5, you can start pushing back some of the lane, but Talia will still have the push presence. There's going to be these moments where Maple can drop off the map, and this is what mid laners like Maple do very well when you're used to playing roaming champions. You push mid, you move into fog of war. If there are no wards down, suddenly Naru, Zeitnot, and Fabulous all have to be very careful about where that mid laner can go, and that's one of the things you'll see is just, even if Maple's not going anywhere, drops into that corridor beside Raptors, just to scare the rest of SuperMassive. If their vision control isn't on top form, suddenly out goes the Weaver's Wall, and Flash Wolves have the numbers advantage.
And we already know these two teams play very bottom lane focused. As I say that, Stomage is making his way down into the bottom lane. Dumbledore will slow up Betty, uses the heal nice and early. Smokescreen gets flashed away. Stomage still chasing them down, puts so much damage to the Sword Art despite the exhaust coming down. He's a man possessed, has to flash away.
Oh, triple kick!
Big side note into 3 people. That's going to continue hunting them down. SuperMassive get the first kill in this skirmish, but Flash Wolves respond with 3 kills for themselves.
Flash Wolves across the board coming out ahead. Kasa with a triple kick manages to get on top of the rest of the SuperMassive lineup, but took too much damage from Stomaged in the end of things. But nevertheless, Flash Wolves go heavily in favor. This is a top lane kill. We heard the charge during this engage, but what is it that kills Fabulous? Because there's a lot of damage still to be done. Gets on, bear trap on a rope. He just completely wrecks him with those empowered fast autos. So Stormage drops low. Flash comes out in respect. Beautiful kick out of Kasa, but ignited. Everybody from SuperMassive just turns their focus down on Kasa because they know they've got to pick up something from this. And again, there was Maple out of lane. Weaver's Wall comes down. Easy set of kills for the Flash Wolves, and they make these ganks look moderately easy themselves.
Great counter gank coming up from Kasa there. Stomage was looking to see if he can try and take down Sword Art. Good exhaust from the Zyra, stopped all that damage coming through, and although they eventually got Casa there, big play from Flashwolf, solid kill in the top lane, 3 kills bottom. They're now 1,000 gold ahead of SuperMassive, and this is where we start to see them try to take control of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. You do see the pros and the cons of the Orianna at the same time, though. Con is you can't move out to the opposite lane or the bottom lane as fast, obviously, as the Talia. But the pro is you shove out mid, and look at how much damage on the minimap has already been done to that mid tower. Naru with those empowered autos just pushes the wave up, gets the damage down. So that is actually a beneficial point if SuperMassive can maybe get a kill on Maple here, or just as this game goes further, apply more pressure around mid lane and keep Maple in his lane from threat of killing the tower. Maybe they can slow down the Flash Wolves' aggression.
Well, let's see if they can, because already on the top side of the map, Fabulous is not having a good time against MMD anymore. Seems like level 6, level 7 is where that Kled starts to take over.
And the difficulty is with Fabulous picking up those Ninja Tabi will be a little less resistant, but you're right. It's difficult for Nautilus actually to get away from the Kled. So when you choose the trade, Kled just sticks on top of you and manages to take you down. You can see Fabulous has lost a lot of his health. And with that wave pushing in, this isn't the type of position where MMD is going to go all in, but you've always got to worry for that. You see that bear trap on a rope comes flying out, Maple's coming up. Now 2 versus 1, they may very well go for. This is the Flash Wolves, this is what they're great at. No wall available. They can get in on MMD with the charge, that may be enough, but again, there's just the threat of roaming out of lane.
Pinkward does spot out Maple, making his way towards the top side of the map, so Fabulous is back off. Gives Naru some time to shove out the mid lane and try and get some more chip damage. Maple will rock surf his way back to the lane nice and easy. Again, very quiet between these two teams. Naru still looking to try and get as much damage as possible. Zoning out Maple almost.
Yeah, Naru maybe a little over-aggressive on that in the sense that they didn't have full vision on Casa. They knew he's likely not on the bottom side of his jungle because of the vision control they had. And yes, Stormage is around the bottom side there, but if Naru steps forward, you've got to respect the knockback plus the Weaver's Wall from Talia. That may have been a flash from Naru, but at the same time, I like that they're trying to take these advantages, make plays where they can. They're trying to get Maple.
Oh, they obliterate Maple! SuperMassive just charge into the mid lane.
And now that's the play that they can look for if they do make these aggressive stances here. If they can get in there, it looks like Maple with no flash stepped too close to Naru. Shockwave came out comes the collateral damage, and suddenly Maple can't survive. And that's the mid tower we were talking about. 1 kill here opens up the game for the SuperMassive again.
Yep, this is going to be first brick going to SuperMassive. Caster's trying his best to defend this, but he just can't. And the gold is once again even between the Flash Wolves and SuperMassive.
SuperMassive taking it to the Flash Wolves despite a lot of the skirmishes going in their favor. Well, Naru was putting out a lot of damage now that he's got those Sork boots. You can see early on can still contend with Casa's health bar.
Also at half health, he can't quite contest a mage at the moment. He's called upon Sword Art to rotate into his own jungle. That gave Zeitnot some time to clear out this pink water, as well as push out the bottom lane. And it seems like SuperMassive really want to try and set up for this Infernal Dragon, or at least get vision control over the river.
Getting an Infernal Drake would be a significant boost to SuperMassive in the sense that look at how good their team fight is for this composition. You got the Nautilus, the Orianna, if you can flank, get that engage using the Ash Arrow as well. Then you multiply all the damage by a little bit extra. Suddenly, Flash Wolves, their attempt to play this side lane style, potentially with the Kled and the Talia, can get capitalized on. 1 arrow hits Betty, and maybe the game is basically done at a late team fight. So that Infernal Drake would go a long way to helping SuperMassive power up this Orianna, the Ashe, to get him into the game.
Well, it's rapidly approaching the mid game, and that's where we normally start to see SuperMassive fall apart, especially in their matches against Rampage. Although they were victories, they were quite late comebacks for the team. One was a 5-0 deficit, very similar to the start here for the Flash Wolves. But really was the mid game where things start to look shaky for SuperMassive.
And it's interesting now because Flash Wolves are a team that you heard the analysts talking about it. When they get drawn into very late games, that tends to be the only losses they've had. There was the turnaround game against H2K at IEM, which goes a little against that because H2K slowed down themselves and allowed Flash Wolves into the game. But certainly when they're dictating the pace, that is when Flash Wolves look the strongest, when it's Casa just going unstoppable in a game. And that's not quite the Flash Wolves that have that have continued in this game. It started that way, but they have slowed down.
However, the top side of the map is well and truly unlocked for the Flash Wolves, as MOD is able to take down the top lane turret all by himself. Fabulous is keeping up well in terms of CS, but still 24 down against the Kled, as well as a little bit of experience behind him as well. Still a lot of focus towards the bottom lane, but besides the first skirmish we saw, has not been too much action taking place between the two teams bottom side of the map. Both of them just pushing in, heading back to base. Blade of Rune King already picked up by Betty. It seems like Zeitnot will do the exact same thing after he heads back to base here.
Yep, gonna pick it up. There you go. The Blade of the Rune King pretty much standard on just about every AD carry we're seeing right now. But speaking of AD carries, Betty, we heard from him and Sword Art at the beginning of the game here that they've been training Betty up, and that's kind of a pretty frightening concept to me in the sense that Betty was already beating Sven and Mithy by the time they were like 5 weeks into the split for the Flash Wolves. Now that you've had another 5-6 weeks on the end of it, I'm excited to see where in a best of 5 this Flash Wolves bot lane can take control, because this has been quite slow paced, but I'm still impressed by what Betty and Sword Art have been doing in general. Their vision control on the bottom side has been good. They've taken good trades in the lane so far. They're slightly down in CS, sure, but that kill and 3 assists each makes up for it.
I mean, the Flash Wolves' domestic performance in the LMS speaks for itself.
Yeah.
I mean, they've lost, what, I believe it was 1 game in the first week and then went completely undefeated until they dropped the match against AHQ in the Grand Finals. It was absolutely terrifying, especially when they still come and say, you know, we're still working on our bottom lane synergy between what seems to be a mechanical prowess of Betty and a historical figure of Sword Art.
It's kind of interesting, right? You get rid of a player named Never Lose, shortened to NL, and you end up winning more. Like, how does that work? He's meant to never lose. Why would you name yourself that?
He's not win more, he's just never lose. So.
Well, I guess it wasn't true for the Flash Wolves. Those 2 games that they've lost so far must haunt them at night. Well,
however, SuperMassive, even though I mean, the game's not over yet, Flash Wolves are still ahead.
Absolutely.
They must be surprising quite a few people, because 15 minutes in, they still look like they're holding their own, just 1,000 gold behind the Flash Wolves.
And I think that's a really impressive feat, not only for SuperMassive, but a lot of the teams for the play-ins, where we look at the likes of yesterday's series with the Gigabyte Marines, taking TSM, the #1 team in North America, all the way to 5 games is an impressive feat. And the fact that SuperMassive right now are hanging on, this is something that we couldn't even see G2 do back at IEM for a lot of the games. Like, they started falling behind, so did the Unicorns. So, like, it's impressive for SuperMassive so far, but I think they are a team that still have the potency to close some games out in this series. Like, I don't count them out at all.
And Rusty must be getting some flashbacks to yesterday after saying that's going to be 3-0 to TSM. Now he's coming and said 3-0 to Flash Wolves, but bottom lane, Zeitnot has been caught. Double teleport coming in, Double Doge charges up to bullet time. MOD will get there first. Fabulous will try and lock him down. Maple cuts up the retreat path, and Zeitnot is nowhere close enough to his team. Caster kicks one back, Stone Age will fall. Flash Wolves get 2 kills in the bottom lane.
And this is exactly what they were looking for. We talked about it, the bot lane snowball. You bring in MMD, you bring down Maple from the mid lane. Naru was just on a recall. He had pushed out mid, was trying to get back to get a recall timing and buy some items, and Flash Wolves go, okay, is this going to be a 5 versus 4? And they go all down towards the bottom lane. We spoke about the potency of the Varus, the Zyra. The crowd are coming alive, chanting for the Flash Wolves. And Flash Wolves, they pick themselves up another couple of kills on that exchange and easily once again regain control of this game.
They get an Infernal Dragon as well, now 3,000 gold ahead of SuperMassive, but let's check this out one more time.
Yeah, Maple pings Orianna. There's a ward in the lane there, just outside of tower range to know they're recalling. TPs come in, they sidestep the bullet time coming from Dumbledoge. The wall, after Misfortune has flashed, means Dumbledoge's fate is sealed at this point. Of Maple just destroys him for an extra kill there. It looked maybe like SuperMassive had a very small window at the beginning of this where Stormage dodged out a lot of Caster's early damage, but then in comes the TP, in comes the wall, and Flash Wolves are 5 versus 4.
We see most of the gold currently sitting on MMD on the top side of the map, 1,600 gold ahead of his opponent. In the jungle as well, Caster slightly ahead, and in the bottom lane, slightly ahead for Betty. It's only really Naru who is beating his opponent of Maple at the moment in terms of gold, but it's a very small deficit at that.
And even that, when you look at it, doesn't have the biggest impact on the game as you're alluding to. Like, Naru has been sat mid lane and pushes it out and recalls, and pushes it out and recalls the entire game, whereas Maple is moving down to the bottom side, getting themselves the exchanges. Bot tower has now fallen, so it opens the map for this Kled, for this Talia. They got the Infernal Drake. Flash Wolves say, what the hell, let's just take the Rift Herald as well, give that over to MMD, because he's already so far ahead in this matchup that Fabulous can't sit in lane against him. And this game has gone from being competitive, perhaps for Supermassive, to being all about the Flash Wolves side lane control now, and it is very difficult to re-arrest control from a team that can set up side lanes so effectively. We'll see if Supermassive can do it with the amount of crowd control they have.
Yeah, Supermassive are well and truly on the back foot now, although Naru did shove into Maple quite well and took the first turret. Maple was able to unlock the rest of the map.
Again.
They're going in again. Weaver's Wall separates Zeitnot. Does have flash available, but has been locked down twice. And Caster's all the way in the back line, jumps over the wall to help out for another kill. And MMD is still charging on through. Once double doge, can't get the bear trap on the rope to connect. And Naru just watches as he tries to take down MMD here. Fabulous can't find the hook to return, but 2 kills picked up by the Flash Wolves. That's an aggressive dive.
Oh, and it's one of the things that Flash Wolves do so well. Normally, as casters, we have time to go, okay, here's what they're going to do. They're going to push up with the Kled, they'll move into mid lane and cut down behind, because that's what the comp does. A lot of teams take a few extra seconds to actually set that up. I was waiting to jump on it, and all of a sudden out comes the Talia wall already. Flash Wolves are already going. Only now is Supermassive like, okay, we have to watch out for that. And Flash Wolves are already going. Casa goes right into the backline. Nobody can save Zeitnot because they're not running a support that is going to be able to rescue an AD carry when a Lee Sin goes right the way in. It doesn't even matter that MMD comes the long way into the lane and comes through the front and doesn't really do too much because Flash Wolves have already won the exchange.
So Flash will pick up a nice 4,000 gold lead for themselves. Chip away at that mid lane out of turret, which Supermassive do hold on to. But if they can keep this up, they're going to just slowly increase this lead and start to bleed out Supermassive.
And you can see the movement on how they're trying to make sure they're bleeding out Supermassive. Like, as soon as Fabulous is pushed up in the lane, way too far, Caster starts moving up with Sorda. Together, they're already going through the jungle because they say, okay, if he doesn't respect us, if he doesn't back off, MMD will start the fight, will come in and finish it. And Fabulous would have been in a lot of trouble. There is no vision for Supermassive on the top side. Now they want to fight.
They're going in. They just missed the other boat. Casa kicks Naru into the entire team. He's the first one to fall. Graves will be next as MAD is already in the back line. Supermassive are trying to fight back, but there's just absolutely nothing they can do against this aggressive wolf pack that take down 3 more kills.
This is starting to look like a clinic for how to aggressively close out a game. You control the jungle, and as soon as someone steps forward, okay, it might not be the cleanest execution on how to start the fight, but by God, the Flash Wolves finish it.
I mean, big mistakes coming up for Supermassive though. Zeitnot not connecting with the ultimate. That Fabulous throwing his anchor into a plant, and Flash Wolves goes, well, there's no more engagement potential for them, let's just charge on in.
But it's very difficult for Supermassive to set this up because they have no vision outside of Hawkshot. Like, look, Kaza doesn't even hit the kick, the Sonic Wave at that point, but he goes, all right, let's go into the back of it anyway, get the kick on Naru, and the fight's already done. Wall cuts off the rest of Supermassive from getting out of there. Perfect wall again by Maple. This guy is impressive on the Talia. But I really want to emphasize that I don't think there are too many teams that could hang with this Flash Wolves when you look at a European, American, maybe a fair few of the Korean teams might be able to at least understand the process for controlling that jungle again. But that's a difficult concept because you've got to use the hawk shot. You've got to check every bush on the way. Warding has to be immaculate because a Talia, a Kled, will completely demolish anybody if they step out of position.
MMD's not going to try and do that again. Pulls back Fabulous, just, you know, sends a message to the Nautilus. He's got the Rift Hell buff from earlier. He's going to be able to split push quite effectively for his team. Kasa looking to try and jump in on towards SuperMassive as another Weaver's Wall comes through, but the Q will expire. Speaking of Kasa, he's gone for a Black Cleaver. That's his second item. So everyone from the Flash Wolves packs the punch heading into this game.
Yeah, wants to not only shred some of that armor down, but again, stay alive a little longer when he goes into the fight. I am like moderately impressed with SuperMassive's early game. I think they did a good job of controlling mid lane. We saw Stormage come into the mid lane, get that first tower. I think that was what they needed, but after that, it's been very difficult for them with this Misfortune composition to actually start fights. It's been Flash Wolves starting them and ending every fight before SuperMassive have really managed to connect with anything. And
that's exactly what we've seen from SuperMassive throughout the entire play-ins. They do fairly well early. They start to falter mid-game and only really truly come back later on in the match. But Flash Wolves are a very experienced team from the LMS. They're probably not going to allow SuperMassive to have that opportunity to come back into the game. Already 10,000 gold up just 23 minutes in.
And look at them utilizing this composition, running 3-1-1. So they can bring the Talia across map whichever way they need to go. They've already got 2 towers from this Baron. And a lot of teams are a little slower on that. Flash Wolves just go, okay, let's go take it. Let's get everything we can. Of course, the composition plays into this, and this is a composition style they're used to playing. They have strong winning side lanes right now, and that affords them the ability to do this. Even just using the TP into the mid lane to start this fight off, this Fabulous is trying to flank.
He's trying to get into the back lines, but Kasa finds Stormage and takes him down straight away. Zynos being charged upon by a cowardly lizard as everyone from the side of SuperMassive just falls one by one. Flash Wolves are pushing for the base.
They were 10k gold up. It's one of the cleanest aces you'll see because of how far ahead they were. And Flash Wolves, that is a statement in game 1 of this game against SuperMassive.
Yeah, they're trying to finish this game off 25 minutes into the match. The respawn time is just too slow for SuperMassive. They held on nice and easy in the early game. They did their hardest to fight back mid-game, but Flash Wolves, they close it out. Game 1, nice and easy.
And I like to see that they did their homework coming into this game, banning out a lot of the protect site not style. The Ivan was gone, the Galio was gone. It put SuperMassive in a position where they were trying to play a little bit for later with the Orianna for the Nautilus, and they hang on through the early game to a decent degree. But Flash Wolves go, okay, time to shine. Bring the Talia, bring the Kled. Everybody, after that 5 versus 4 in the bottom lane, was hyper-focused on snowballing that lead, and Flash Wolves doing a great job of it.
And you hear the hometown crowd in Brazil chanting for the Flash Wolves. I mean, makes sense. SuperMassive were in the same group as the Brazilian representatives, the Red Canids. So after knocking them out, they're hoping for some sweet revenge here today from the Wolves.
I want to see what SuperMassive can now do in game 2 of that series. Maybe they look at the Ivan. I don't fancy that into Kasa too much, but they have an uphill battle. It's not over yet. We'll see if they can replicate perhaps some of what Gigabyte Marines were doing yesterday.
That's right, it's still a best-of-5 series, but for more on that match, let's check in with the analysts.
Thank you very much, Fish. Of course, start by taking a look at the draft and what was an insanely one-sided game in favor of the Flash Wolves. And I'll give you gentlemen credit. You called it a 3-0, and we're not there yet, but this is a very good start from the Flash Wolves.
I mean, when you draft this kind of a composition from Flash Wolves, what was interesting to me was the fact that the high priority on the Zyra, the fact that they're already saying down the bottom lane, we want to have this potent advantage, get ourselves a strong lane down the bottom half, and then the fact that SuperMassive respond by going for something a little unconventional with the Misfortune after the nerfs, well, the expectation was that she wasn't being played in the support role anymore, but they felt confident enough to bring it out, and we'll get into the level 1s a little bit later, but it didn't go exactly the way that they would have wanted.
Yeah, like Misfortune's still good into Zyra, but you have a team composition now with 380 carries and Nautilus that needs to be there, or you're just going to melt, and an Orianna that is super important. They very rarely fought with the Orianna there. They were a very fragile composition, so they needed to be ahead early, and that obviously did not happen.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, because what we identify here is that SuperMassive went for a style that worked for them during the group stages, where they had a good... They basically were confident during Group A that they could play slow laning phases, and they could just rely on good vision control in order to get themselves to a point where they could excel in these mid-game fights. But what we're seeing from the Flash Wolves is the Lee Sin coming out from Kasa, the fact that you have a Talia in the mid lane who's constantly looking for roams, and the Kled who's likely going to win that matchup up in the top half of the map. So the Flash Wolves did not give them an avenue to play this slow and safe style.
Well, not only that, there were small mistakes coming in on the side of SuperMassive, very aggressive moves. When we take a chance to look at our first replay, you can see even from level 1, things did not go in the favor of SuperMassive. A bad exchange here at the level 1, and you can see how it paid off for them in the minutes to follow.
And quite simply, by being down here at level 1, forcing the Flash out of Dumbledore. That's the most important summoner spell that was just used. That's all that Flash Wolves could ever have wanted, because the way Caster executes this gank is by pretending that Zeitnot doesn't exist. He is just an Ashe in a world of minions, walks straight past him and goes for the target that doesn't have the flash, right? Very good awareness of this team and picking up on a small mistake happening at level 1, translating that into first blood onto the jungler, and you give Caster first blood gold, he's going to make you pay.
But what I love about this whole play is the fact that they punish what is a very conventional move up against Zyra in particular, because normally what you want to do is move into the lane and try and deny her from getting those plants very deep. And Caster moves in, potentially expecting 4 or even 5 members of SuperMassive, but when he finds out that there's in fact only 2 or 3, then that's a happy field day for the Flash Wolves, because they know that with the Lee Sin, they're going to at least guarantee some kind of a flash. But then it's the fact that we're seeing this proactivity of always trying to punish this lack of summoner spells. We saw it yesterday from the Gigabyte Marines too, when they moved around to mid lane, always trying to punish these lack of summoner spells. And I feel like it's something that, especially teams in Europe, don't often look to punish. So this proactivity is something that I'm really enjoying from the Flash Wolves.
Enjoying seeing it as well, but of course, this is just insane coming in from Flash Wolves, because normally we can say Flash Wolves, they can be a slower team, but it seems like when you give these guys an advantage, when you give them an early lead, they just keep upping the tempo, and we see that in our Acer replay, where Karsa comes in huge on this counter gank.
So what I love about this gank is the fact that, well, SuperMassive, they overextend just a little bit, but keep your eyes on Karsa, right? He's coming in from the river, and he's going to miss his Q initially. Now, he wood jumps in, realizes that he doesn't have the angle that he wants, so he then flashes to set up Zeitnot to get the 3-man knocker. But even though he dies, it doesn't matter, because he gets the highlight reel and he sets up his team to get the kill.
And that's what makes it the best part, is he actually does die afterwards. He makes sure he gets the 3-man kick. He has to knock everyone up for his team.
It's the solo queue moment.
My job is done.
You spam, you get the guys. You throw up the mastery emote, you're with your body on the ground, you're like, I got it. You saw it, it happened. It was fantastic. And the thing from here, though, is that we have to praise SuperMassive. They did make moves. We saw in the mid lane, they were able to get tower first blood. They did even up the gold after that point, but it still felt like Flash Wolves were 100% in the driver's seat.
It's just the way in which the Flash Wolves are always using their composition to constantly push their lead. The fact that the Talia, whenever her ultimate was up, they went down bottom lane. They had the constant push after how the early game went in the Flash Wolves' favor, and then the fact that Kled was just straight up winning 1v1 in the top lane, it was very similar to Haunter versus Stark yesterday, just demonstrating their dominance in the 1v1.
Yeah, winning in solo lanes where the emphasis and the pressure is not going to be, obviously tips the balance over just that little bit more. But you still have to, again, getting the first turret down, actually give credit to StoneMage for the way that he was playing in the jungle. He's not quite Levi. That's where we look towards Caster. I'd say he's closer to Levi in the way that he'd play. But StoneMage was calm. He was stealing buffs when Caster was ganking if he wasn't able to be there. He was still playing jungle the right way.
Yeah, consistently making moves to punish, which is good to see in this series, and pays credit to him, especially as we have a lot more games to go, potentially, if they can start to fight back. However, as we take a chance now to look at our third replay, Flash Wolves, once again, they kept the ball rolling, they kept finding these excellent engages, and it just felt like there was nothing SuperMassive could do.
The great thing about these fights is it's a great demonstration of Flash Wolves' ability to set up vision, but then also just the way in which they coordinate these fights as well, because this kind of a composition is very difficult if you don't find the correct avenues for Kled to engage on, and if Lee Sin cannot get into those primary targets. But every single time, Flash Wolves was able to do that, and that just demonstrates the consistency and the control that they had throughout this game.
And for me, when we look at this series, I think my biggest concern when we see games as one-sided is this. When you're SuperMassive, what do you take away from this loss? Because so many kills go down in the early game. You've got solo kills happening in your lanes. What do you do to kind of take away from this game so you can learn something coming into game 2 and improve your performance?
You just have to remember that you have to expect the unexpected against a team like the Flash Wolves. Yes, they have the finesse of a Korean team, but sometimes they will just throw the crazy level 2 ganks down in the bottom lane. And sometimes, you know, you think about it, will they gank me? I have no flash in bottom. The answer is yes. They will actually do it, and that's something that you do need to respect moving forwards, because again, their draft needed to scale. If the goal or their win condition as a team comp was to win early laning phase through bottom 2v2, have Graves outpace in the jungle, and just have everyone stay safe in lanes, then if you die at level 2, you've already lost your win condition. So they just need to think back a little bit more carefully and respect what Flash Wolves can do.
And I love the way you described it earlier on in some of our prep sessions, which was very much that they have the aggression of an LPL team and they also have the tactics of an LCK team. And while they are somewhere in the middle, they're like a mesh between the two, you are seeing that against a team like SuperMassive, it's very easy for them to exploit both of those strengths that they have.
Just feels like you give them those openings, they're going to take them every time, they're going to punish you. Now, if there's anything, I think looking at the draft, we had a lot of praise for what Flash Wolves were trying to put together. And Russ, you talked about kind of the vulnerability of the SuperMassive composition in the early game. Is this something they can shore up as we move to the next game? Can they pick something a little safer, a little less vulnerable to these early plays?
They can, but I just have to wonder if they will actually do that at all. Remember that it's Dumbledore playing in the support role. And for me, that's the one position where they could perhaps change up their draft to have a little bit more emphasis on a more well-rounded team composition. I'd prefer to see, honestly, a Bard or a Thresh from him over a Misfortune, but then he's into a Zyra. Could have been a Karma. There could have been lane pressure. And so he's just going to have a really hard time adjusting how they play. I think keep doing what they're doing if that's their plans, but refine how they do it.
All right, well, we'll see if they can refine it. We're going to have to step away for a moment. After the break, we'll see if SuperMassive can bounce back against Flash Wolves in Game 2 of this series.
Man possessed, has to flash away.